The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the iniquities of the podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Boy Party. This week, Shane and I are discussing one of the most iconic films of all time, and it's Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction, starring John Travolta, Bruce Willis, Uma Thurman, and Samuel L. Jackson. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Boy Party, the podcast that tackles cinema's most iconic team-ups, films where two or more major stars share the screen and battle it out for screen time, first billing, the fatter paycheck, and the most acclaim. Every week we discuss movies that give audiences several for the price of one, in this case, on Legends of the Silver Screen, and delve into dueling star personas, a bit of behind-the-scenes drama, and the ultimate quest for box office Oscars and cinematic dominance. My name is Lucien. I'm joined by my fellow slightly incompetent hitman. We're driving around. We're talking about cheeseburgers. One of us has been to Europe. It's Shane Kelly. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to our Pulp Fiction episode, Shane. Now, folks, Pulp Fiction, probably the most discussed on podcasts film that's ever existed.
Probably the most postered on wall.
Yeah, one of.
Of.
So if you're tuning in to Boy Party for the first time this week, I personally think this episode we're going to really lean into the specific angle of the show more than we perhaps usually do. Because I don't think that us trying to sit here and have the comprehensive Pulp Fiction conversation is going to get us very far. So this is the Boy Party version of Pulp Fiction.
It is. And we're
the stars, the billing, the salaries, the Oscar nominations, and all of that. So get ready, get excited.
And also, we're probably going to lean a bit more into the hater aspect of this film.
Yes. Now, we watched this film together, rewatched it the best part of a week ago, and I've spent the past week trying to dig a little bit into why people love this film so much. Smart people love this film so much, you know, cinephiles, people who know about film history, why they like this film so much, to try and understand why I shouldn't be a hater, because I don't hate this film. I think it's perfectly decent film. It's a 3 out of 5 for me, I would say. Maybe slightly higher than that, but it's just a film that's been hystericized by people who don't particularly know about film in a way where I sort of am suspicious of its quality. Case in point, I would say this is on a very short list of films that if you go up to a random person on the street, the odds are higher that they've seen it than not seen it. And I think that is very rare.
My mother has quoted this as being a film she likes.
I'd say my mother likes this film too.
My mother very rarely stays away for the duration of a film.
I'd say anyone who was in their 30s in the 90s probably has a very, very strong affinity for this film. Probably has a very strong affinity for this, which is interesting. I went on to this film's Letterboxd page after we watched it, and I follow about 250 people on Letterboxd. And I would say the average number of people who have seen a film that I watch ranges somewhere between 7 and 20. I would say 235 people had logged this film that I follow. Yeah. Everyone has seen this film who has a Letterboxd profile. And the only other films you could really say that about are probably Interstellar and Inception and The Dark Knight. And then
Barbie, probably.
Maybe The Wizard of Oz. Maybe. And then I would say maybe like Finding Nemo and Toy Story. Yeah. That's probably it. And then the Harry Potter films. Sure. But even there, you're losing some people who are just like, I ain't watching that shit. Everyone has seen Pulp Fiction, which is why we need to tell everybody what we think about it. But anyway, this film is obviously Tarantino's kind of most iconic film, I would say, which is, you know, to be fair to him, there are other contenders for that. Like, I think he's made 3 or 4 films that are incredibly distinct and beloved, and you know, if a random guy had made Inglourious Bastards, that would be their masterpiece. If a random person had made basically any of his first 5 films, I would say.
Yeah, I guess this one represents him more because it's probably set where he lives and in the world he exists in.
Yeah, it's the climax of decades of him taking in, you know, hoovering up knowledge and references and
just seeing people around LA, like.
Yeah, but also his cinephileness, his cinephilia, his working in cinemas and video stores and watching absolutely everything, and his obsession with hitman movies, French New Wave, Kung Fu. Every type of film that Tarantino loves is kind of projected onto this in different ways. And if you come at it from the perspective, which is what I've been trying to kind of figure out from listening to other people and reading some stuff, is the influence of the French New Wave on this is the most interesting angle on it, is in that he is creating these very traditional action comedy situations. So there's hitmen, they're going to a house. There's, you know, a guy on the date with the gangster's wife. There's the guy who's got this money that he owes, all this stuff. Very traditional stuff you'd see in a movie from the 80s, a Shane Black film, Lethal Weapon, fucking whatever. But he's projecting onto that a sort of a Jean-Luc Godard, people sitting in cars talking, people walking down the street talking thing that is like the 90s version of that in America is more commonly associated with Richard Linklater and those movies and Before Sunset and people kind of talking, walking around, talking about their lives. Pulp Fiction is like full of that, and that's really influential and really why people I think took this to heart so much when it came out. Is so he made a genre film with action and violence and sex and drugs that is also functioning as like a kind of a hangout movie of a kind of a French style that hadn't really been done in Hollywood in a genre film like this. And if you look at it from that perspective, you're like, well, it is funny, the script is good, and the performances are charming, so it's working on every level. I think my issue with it is just that it's, again, highly hystericized in a way where you really want it to be watertight, perfect, every scene the right length, every joke is hitting. And for me, it's not quite a perfect movie, and which makes me judge it very harshly.
Yeah, like, I don't know if this is the barometer for a film like this, but you don't really feel anything watching it.
No. I guess we should be looking at it through the lens of it being a comedy.
Yeah.
And nothing more than a comedy, but the problem is that it gets treated like something much more than that. People act as though it's changed their lives, and I don't quite understand how this could have a particularly meaningful effect on you unless your relationship with movies is entirely surface level, you know?
And maybe you're like a devout Catholic and some of Samuel L. Jackson's words
really spoke to you. It is interesting. There is a certain type of person whose answer for what their favorite films are will always be cool choices rather than emotional choices. And look, there are films that you and I say are our favorite films that don't have much feeling to them, but I would say that the feeling can be, you know, it doesn't have to be they're gonna make you cry. Like Mission Impossible movies get the heart rate going, and Moneyball kind of creates a certain fervor around cash and sports and success, and these are films that aren't necessarily tearjerkers or, you know, existentially, you know, they're not about faith, they're not about romance, they're not about love and life and loss, but they're getting the gears moving inside. This film for me is like a kind of a chuckle every couple of minutes sort of movie, rather than a wow, I guess
there's no real sense of direction to it.
No.
And there's no overarching stakes apart from just kind of what each character is kind of just dealing with a person. Like,
yeah,
hard to know.
It's too much of a reference to other movies. It's
a little bit.
It's like referencey to the point of losing its own identity.
It's a vehicle for its own references rather than kind of its own thing, almost to a detrimental.
Yes, and there's actually very handily two other movies to compare it to, because it was nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards for 1994 alongside the winner, Forrest Gump, and another loser, which was The Shawshank Redemption. These are three of the most famous films of all time, and they all came out the same year. And Forrest Gump represents boomer porn. Wasn't the 60s the peak of America? What if things were as simple as they are in this guy's brain? Kind of bullshit, right? I like Forrest Gump probably slightly more than Pulp Fiction because I'm a moron, but it's a stupid right-wing movie, okay? Shawshank Redemption is always, you know, attributed as the one film that can make even the manliest man cry, because it's about losing your freedom and looking for getting it back and trying to get out of this confined space and live your life again. And it's sort of an ultimate, like, you know, again, a bit of a kind of a right-wing American fever dream about like losing your freedom. And
yeah, like there's a little bit of like, oh, what if a normal wimp went into jail and did good?
Yeah,
like, which kind of is the
good
sap stream, like, yeah.
So like, if you put these three movies beside each other and they're all competing for the hearts of audiences in 94 and at the Oscars, and interestingly, 94 is obviously like this is the last era of film before we're born. And we're kind of like just after this. So we're commenting on it in a rearview mirror, really. I feel like I'm more entitled to give my thoughts on films from post 2000 than on this. But you put these beside each other and you're like, well, this is the cool one of those three. Would I in 1994 want to be associated with the cool movie instead of the sappy movies? Yes, 100%. I absolutely would. Yeah. The one with the beautiful woman on the poster and the cool font, and the one that's, you know, actually got good roles for, I don't know, just like it's got a fun mix of actors. It's not this like sappy fucking shit. But then if you ask me which of those three films I'd want to rewatch once a year, like Pulp Fiction is coming last. Like, I don't know, I get a lot more out of the other two just on a kind of a silly sentimental level.
Yeah, like Forrest Gump is always going to be interesting because it's kind of a time capsule of a certain...
Yeah, Forrest Gump's just got a lot of moments in it that are just kind of amusing. And then Shawshank just has a great Thomas Newman score, and Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman have great chemistry in kind of a not entirely dissimilar way to the Travolta, Sam Jackson characters in this. No. If you take all of the kind of jokiness out of it, there is a kind of a funny, like, dorky white guy and a cool black guy kind of chatting and learning about each other's lives.
Yeah, and they come across different violent situations. And
yeah, like these movies they do share some DNA of that era, but it is funny anyway. I don't know what point I was trying to make, but basically, yeah.
Yeah, I think the rewatchability of Forrest Gump kind of comes from the fact that nearly your opinion of it changes based on current cultural circumstances.
It's a sicko favorite.
It's a sicko favorite, whereas Pulp Fiction is kind of... It's like it's a standalone thing that doesn't really... What you think of it is what you think of it.
Yeah, and like the coolness of it is undeniable, which kind of makes it boring, you know?
It's too cool. Too many people dress up as it for Halloween costumes.
It is the oasis of movies, you know? It's like the too many Halloween costumes. Yes, everyone in it is cool. Everyone in it is attractive. I have no issues with any of that. I don't find it compelling to think about the coolness in this film the way I would in a film that nobody ever describes as cool, that I think is cool.
Like if Pulp Fiction 2 came out, Ticketmaster would crash.
It
wouldn't even be selling the tickets. But
Pulp Fiction 2.
Pulp Fiction.
You'd struggle with it given how many of the characters get killed on screen, but you know, you could.
But you can just go back a day further back.
Yeah, you just go back another day. Exactly, yeah. Trainspotting is the other 90s movie that's undeniable in its coolness. I obviously love Trainspotting. It's way better than this movie because I think Trainspotting gets the fucking blood rushing. Trainspotting is a visceral film about addiction and losing your mind and substances and the positive and negative sides of that. There's just a lot more feeling in Trainspotting than there is in Pulp Fiction because it's more... So it surrenders itself to the experiential stuff rather than constantly being like winky winky. This is a movie. Don't forget it's a movie.
Yeah, like
there's a lot of Deadpool in Pulp Fiction.
The story of Pulp Fiction is kind of so self-contained that there's no real kind of character arcs you can pick up on.
No.
I kind of like the Bruce Willis bits the best.
Yeah,
I thought that was the most.
It is. I agree.
Engaging. Like from a story.
Probably because it goes. It's uninterrupted.
It's uninterrupted.
It's like a nice short story. Like the Bruce Willis thing works really well as a short story. The other elements of it feel like bits of a movie that have been chopped and moved around.
Yeah.
They don't feel like functional short stories to me, although I'm sure some people would argue otherwise. And this film is obviously trying to be a bit of an anthology of short stories. And we've had anthology films recently like Kinds of Kindness, which don't work at all and paint this film as very successful in comparison. But yes, I think the Bruce Willis stuff is nice and smooth and works well, and
I also think it's the
jokes work
very clearly the forgotten bit of this,
which is funny because he's like the biggest star in the movie, which we'll discuss because that's part of our podcast premise.
I do have a weird relationship with this where 3 years ago, if you asked me how long this film was, I'm like, oh, this is a tight hour, 110 minutes,
right?
Flies through it. It's very fast paced. Then I watched it again, and then I watched it maybe 3 years ago, and then when we were coming up to watch it recently.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, this is like 3 hours and 10 minutes.
Right.
Because I remember it being surprisingly long, but it kind of sits there at
It's like 2:25.
Sits there in the middle.
I remembered it being exactly 2 hours long for some reason, which is delusional of me given how Tarantino's films tend to meander. Like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is not dissimilar to this at all.
No.
Which we obviously discussed in our very first episode, which you can go back and listen to. What that movie does in counterpart to the Bruce Willis stuff is it lets Brad Pitt go off on an adventure in the middle of the movie to basically investigate the Spawn Ranch and get this kind of early look at what the Manson stuff's going on is. That is pretty similar in the beats it hits to the Bruce Willis section of this film. And then you kind of swing back to the DiCaprio making his Western crap.
Again, I think the Brad Pitt bit is the best.
Yeah, exactly. It is the best. Yeah. It's funny that these movies sort of... it's funny that they Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's like the thing that Tarantino thinks is the most interesting part is not the most interesting part. I don't know. But anyway, the cast of this movie, you got Uma Thurman, John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson, Harvey Keitel, Tim Roth, Amanda Plummer, Ving Rhames, our boy, Rosanna Arquette, Christopher Walken, Bruce Willis, Steve Buscemi, and Irish legend Brona Gallagher. The poster for this movie in our poster corner is the is a replica of a classic Pulp Fiction paperback cover. It's a great poster. Don't think that's a surprise to anyone. It's got the cast listed all the way down to Walken. Poor Brona Gallagher didn't get a look in, and it's an image of Uma Thurman smoking a cigarette, staring at the camera, lying on a bed with a gun and a book and a lighter. It's one of the most iconic posters of all time for good reason. It's great. I got nothing bad to say about it. I do think that it is funny that this movie only puts Uma Thurman on the poster and none of its big male stars. I think that's a turning point, perhaps, in terms of, and we not to spoil that we've already recorded our Batman episode, but we talk next week about how that movie is sort of the first blockbuster to use kind of like teasy elements in marketing and not just splash everything at the audience. Yeah. The fact that this film has John Travolta and Bruce Willis in it, and yet the image on the poster is just of this beautiful woman is kind of
is it done for the wrong reasons given what we know about Tarantino? Is it like...
Maybe. I think it's more, but also what we know about Harvey Weinstein, who distributed this film, funded it. Maybe, but it is also interesting in the sense of this poster is more interested in the vibe than in selling you the faces of movie stars. Would this film take this risk today? I don't know if it would. Maybe not. But it's very admirable. And I mean, if the poster pays off, you know.
Yeah, what was the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood poster? That was a
basic
floating heads.
Fucking floating heads. Like it's a 70s, 60s, fake 60s poster, but it's a floating heads of the three stars. Like, like if Once Upon a Time in Hollywood were to pull the shit that this movie's pulling now, the main poster they used would have been
Margot Robbie.
There is a poster for that film I like, which is Margot Robbie standing in front of the multiplex where they're showing her movie and looking sultry at the camera or whatever. Yeah. It's just a kind of a isn't Margot Robbie the most beautiful woman poster, but it could have been used as the poster for that film. I think I would have rolled my eyes and gone, all right, look what they're doing here. But if you were going along Pulp Fiction logic, that's what you would have used as the poster.
I just don't think Margot Robbie is a big enough role compared to...
Like Margot Robbie is in that movie, I would say more than Uma Thurman.
We know we've discussed this before, but I can't. She doesn't say anything.
Screen time. Let's quickly.
Yeah, we know.
Okay, Uma Thurman is in Pulp Fiction for 32 minutes, more than I would have guessed. Yeah, to be honest. Meanwhile, so 32 is our bar. Margot Robbie is in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for approximately 30 minutes. It's the same. 17 minutes. 17 minutes. So there you go. It's kind of the same though. That movie's longer. I don't know. It's not. Yeah.
That makes your argument worse.
Yeah, I guess it does make my argument worse. Anywho, this film is nominated for Academy Awards, including Best Picture. It wins Best Screenplay, and then here's interesting stuff. I was under the impression that only Samuel L. Jackson had gotten an acting nomination for this. Not so. Best Lead Actor nomination for Mr. Travolta, which is interesting.
Sorry, was that 2 lead nominations or 1 lead and 1?
1 lead, 1 supporting. So they put Travolta in for lead. They put Jackson in for supporting, which is disingenuous. But it's relative to their stardom. I mean, okay, Travolta's in more of the movie. He's in the diner scene, I suppose.
Yeah, Travolta only hangs out with, or Sam Jackson only hangs out with Travolta.
Yeah.
No, I think that's fair. I think it's fine if you couldn't do it the other way.
No, you couldn't do it the other way, so it's fine. I think there's an argument you should have put all the men into supporting, but then they probably wouldn't have gotten nominated, so it's fine. Then they also got the Jackson nomination in supporting, which I always knew about. I think there's kind of a common opinion that he probably should have won that award. I am going to quickly check who he lost to, actually, and who Travolta lost to as well. So Travolta loses Best Actor. Okay, no surprise here, to Tom Hanks and Forrest Gump. Morgan Freeman is up for Lead Actor for Shawshank. Paul Newman is in there for Nobody's Fool. Then in supporting, Martin Landau and Ed Wood beat Sam Jackson in Pulp Fiction. Would you believe I watched Ed Wood 2 days ago? And I have an opinion on it. I thought Martin Landau was phenomenal in that film. You know Martin Landau, he's the skinny gay guy from North by Northwest, James Mason's goon,
the
guy who gets him drunk.
Yeah.
He's not the butler.
No,
he's
sorry,
like
the guy
goon,
the guy in the house.
Yeah, the guy in the house.
The guy in the house. He's got a creepy face.
He won his Best Supporting Actor Oscar that year for playing classic silent film star Bela Lugosi in Tim Burton's Ed Wood, which is a fucking great performance. He's so good. Yes. So he beats Jackson. Also nominated from Forrest Gump is Gary Sinise, which is hilarious. And then Uma Thurman is nominated for Best Supporting Actress, which is kind of like the least deserving of those three. I hate to say it, and I'm not saying that because I'm sexist, I promise. I don't think she gives much of a performance in this movie other than like looking cool. Margot Robbie did not get nominated for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She got nominated that year for Bombshell instead, which was the correct decision.
Yeah.
I would say Uma Thurman should not have been nominated for Pulp Fiction necessarily. She loses to Diane Wiest in Woody Allen's Bullets Over Broadway. Fine. That's one of the few Woodies I haven't seen. So, but
you know, I
don't know.
I don't think there's a meaningful difference between the four lead performances in terms of quality. Like, I guess,
but she doesn't have any great delivery of dialogue necessarily that the others have. I don't know.
I guess she's subtle with it, and it's like
she's good. She's well cast, and she adds a lot.
She delivers the wonderful tomato joke.
She does. I think her vibe adds a lot to the quality of the film. And then Tarantino wins screenplay, beating Woody Allen, Richard Curtis, Peter Jackson, and Krzysztof Kieslowski. Funny people to beat. Do you think Bruce Willis should have got an Oscar nomination for this? I don't.
Maybe.
I don't think Travolta should have either. Although I do like Travolta, so I don't know. I think Travolta, Ving Rhames, Bruce Willis are the three best performances in this film.
Ving Rhames is great.
Ving Rhames is great. We always love Ving Rhames. He's the best performance in every movie.
Bruce Willis does so much still by doing so little.
He does. I mean, he's always good.
But I think it serves a much better purpose in this than when he's kind of doing the same quiet guy acting like a Die Hard or something.
Yeah.
Whereas like an action star. Like this is...
Well, like many people, my take on Bruce Willis is that he should have gotten an Oscar nomination, possibly a win, for Moonrise Kingdom, in which he is incredible. Mm-hmm. We are sadly now at a point where Bruce Willis is retired, is not going to make any more movies due to his health, and he's never going to get an Oscar nomination again. And he never got one, never won nomination after being a big movie star for 40 years. Now, I don't think that most people would argue that he is a phenomenal dramatic actor, but he's in multiple Best Picture nominated films like this and The Sixth Sense, so it feels unfair. He is really one of the most reliable stars of the last half century. His films have grossed $8 billion, and he's never really been in a franchise. That's all money accrued from Bruce Willis movies.
Does he have
there's no Marvels or DCs or Star Wars is in that list, or fucking Pixar's or DreamWorks.
So you have a 4-decade number one stretch? 3?
He'd have 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, he wouldn't have had a number one so he'd have 4 maybe, not that.
In the 80s? What was he in the 80s?
Yeah, I mean, Die Hard's 80s.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Loads of hits in the 90s, loads of hits in the 2000s. 2010s, Bruce Willis number one. I suppose Die Hard, Good Day to Die Hard probably scraped number one because it came out in February. But like at that point, he's sort of on the decline. Sorry, I shouldn't say he has no DreamWorks. He does have a distinctive DreamWorks. I'll get to that in a minute.
He's in OTH?
Over the Hedge, in which he plays the raccoon protagonist. I believe so. A good performance. I'll go through his biggest movies with you now because there are an insane number of films here with over 100 million worldwide. Just ridiculous. His biggest hit, The Sixth Sense, a scary thriller about a psychotherapist talking to a child. $600 million. Yeah. That is Bruce Willis's star power plus the viral kind of sensation around the movie having a big twist that gets you to that number. That is incredible. You can really see why M. Night has just been allowed to roam free for the last 30 years.
What year was that?
99. Armageddon, the year before that, $500 million. Die Hard 4, 2007, $382 million. G.I. Joe Retaliation is the only thing on here that I would argue has a IP attached bigger than Bruce Willis. Maybe. He's not the lead of that. That's sort of The Rock, Channing Tatum, Bruce Willis, three-hander. That's $375 million. Die Hard with a Vengeance, Over the Hedge, which he plays Orjay, Expendables 2, Good Day to Die Hard, Look Who's Talking, in which he voices the baby, as we learned the other day. Fifth Element, then we have the two M. Nights, Unbreakable and Glass, both a quarter of $1 billion. Very admirable. Die Hard 2, Pulp Fiction, Red, Looper, 12 Monkeys, Jackal, Sin City, Red 2, Surrogates, The Siege, Tears of the Sun, the whole 9 yards. Only now we're hitting the below 100 million. That's a crazy list of bad movies.
Like The Sixth Sense, adjusted for inflation, is about 1.2 billion today.
Yeah.
Which is
like, that's a great career. And you look into any kind of Bruce Willis business stuff and you realize that he is like the most bankable star in like weird countries. Like if you go to like random places in Europe, Eastern Europe and beyond, in terms of American movie stars, like Bruce Willis is like top 3 of all time. I think in terms of like, you can just sell shit over there. I have seen ads in Hungary with Bruce Willis advertising the most random products. He has his name and his face carry such weight in like.
Is he just in like watch and cologne ads? Like,
no, he's not fucking even random ads for fizzy drinks and stuff. You know, really? Just weird. No, because he's not. That's the thing. He's not associated with like upmarket stuff. Okay, like, he looks like a fucking builder. You know. Yeah. You're not really, when you get Bruce Willis, you're not.
He does look like kind of human Homer Simpson. Like.
Yes, he does. You're not really looking for. Oh, what they did. Would he have been good in Simpsons live action movie?
So.
I think he would have been. Shit.
You could have had Uma Thurman as Marge.
You could have had Uma Thurman as Marge. But yeah.
Colonel Lenny.
Yes.
John Travolta.
No,
we're not doing this.
Stop. I think he Simpsons must have done a Pulp Fiction parody at some point. They definitely
100%.
have.
Oh, they did a bit where I think Chief Wiggum and Snake get trapped in the gun store of the guy with one arm.
Oh, right. Okay.
They did. No, I think they did. They might have done more of a Pulp Fiction. But that's the one Pulp Fiction bit I remember.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, apparently Bruce Willis being in this movie allowed Weinstein and the producers to increase the budget significantly because they knew they'd be able to sell the movie worldwide. I'd say if you look up the posters for this film in like Eastern Europe, you're probably getting a big Bruce Willis floating head. But he is a bigger star than maybe we think about. And I think his now forced retirement is very sad, and he's a sad loss. I mean, he hasn't made a lot of good films in the last 20 years, but he's incredible in Moonrise Kingdom. I think it's great we got that performance out of him. I just wish he had done more sort of small budget films with great directors in the last couple of decades of his career. He's someone we may very well talk about again on this podcast.
Is he someone who kind of demanded a lot of input into films he was in?
Yes.
Or was he willing to let himself kind of get taken away?
He pulled a lot of shit where he would like pull out of something at the last minute, but then he would make it up to the studio by doing this. This is a thing that happened where he pulled out of a film at the last minute. Yeah. He then owed Disney 3 other movies, and those 3 movies ended up being like Armageddon, The Sixth Sense, and The Kid. Right. And like 2 of those are his 2 biggest hits ever, and he only did them because he had to, you know? So he was difficult to work with and difficult to make deals with, but it ended up kind of working out for everybody.
Which is honestly pure luck sometimes.
Yeah. And I think he's like he's like lazy, but a pleasant person, but like not nasty.
This guy likes money.
But he's lazy and he likes money and he doesn't like to work very much. Especially not, obviously, since he's been kind of dealing with health issues. Also in this movie, John Travolta, a fascinating movie star. One of the probably worst actors to ever be an A-list star, but also I have enormous affection for him. He is so silly. I can't believe people ever took him seriously. But then you sort of remember that his origins were in a silly place. He starts off on TV sitcoms, and then he's in Grease, which is a very silly movie.
It's kind of like if Matt LeBlanc became like one of the biggest movie stars in the world.
Yeah, but if Matt LeBlanc had like very little self-awareness as well. Like Matt LeBlanc would never be trying to style himself to look like Pitbull doing movies called Speed Kills set on speedboats, you know? Like Travolta's a weird guy. So obviously he starts off in Grease. He's then in Saturday Night Fever, which is, you know, most people think is like a fun movie about disco dancing. That is a very that's a downer of a film. That is a film with like 4 minutes of disco dancing and a lot of like fights and drug taking and miserable stuff. He is a huge star throughout the 80s and the 90s, but by the time Pulp Fiction comes out, he is kind of at his first tail end of being considered a joke. He's been in a lot of flops, a lot of really stupid, bad comedies. Grease and Saturday Night Live are starting to fade from memory, and I think Tarantino sees him in De Palma's Blowout, which is a remake of Blow Up, and he thinks this guy's actually got a really interesting kind of interesting old school edge to him, and he puts him in this, and I think this is great casting. He's so much fun in this. The iconic meme of him, the gif of him like looking around the room for the fucking loudspeakers is...
You really forget watching this how like there is a famous quote every 5 minutes of this for the first probably hour and a half.
Which makes it kind of exhausting.
It does, because you're
pointing
like,
at the screen.
I've seen this, like...
Yeah, it's hard for it to work cohesively when you know every little micro bit of it individually.
It's unfortunate, and it probably taints your viewing experience at this stage. Like, but...
Yes,
you gotta...
I imagine people who come to an iconic film 20 years late probably have that experience, you know? Realistically, you and I are of the age, we weren't watching this film until at least like 2010, 2011. So... there had been 15 to 20 years of time for these quotes to enter the zeitgeist by then. Yeah. Will people feel this way watching Whiplash in 2032? They probably will, you know? It's
or even if like
Fury Road.
Do kids who watch Step Brothers now have a...
Yes, have the same thing. Oh, I've heard that. I've heard that.
Yeah.
Yes. God, I felt that way with Anchorman. So I'd say...
Well, Anchorman's kind of built to be that.
But I'd say you're right. Step Brothers kids probably did have that. Because the Social Network, you know? There's films that are probably slightly ruined by that. But anyway, Travolta is obviously... gets a kind of a second burst of his career after this. That kind of goes down the drain again because he starts making a lot of crappy comedies. He has really bad instincts, you know, but also not a great actor. And this is the problem. And he can't really do like serious movies without being laughed at. His two last big risks he's taken in the last 20 years is, number one, he does Hairspray, where he plays a woman. He does a classical drag performance that was played by a man in drag in the John Waters Hairspray. They cast John Travolta. He's kind of, at this point, leaning into the weird, like, is John Travolta gay sort of vibes that have surrounded him his whole career.
He's a Scientologist?
He's a Scientologist. As with Mr. Cruz, you're either gay or a Scientologist in their world.
Yeah, you can't be both.
Travolta in Hairspray is hilarious. He's married to another Pulp Fiction star, Christopher Walken. And he's really funny in it. And it's like, oh, this is the sort of risk that he should be taking, is doing something really, really silly and over the top. That is in a film that warrants being silly and over the top. Why can't he do more of that? Then in the intervening years, he, of course, calls Idina Menzel Adele Dazeem at the Oscars. And then in 2016, he shows up in American Crime Story, The People vs. O.J. Simpson. And it's like, all right, you're doing TV now.
TV.
This is your chance to fucking rip up the screen.
Yeah.
And he's really bad in it. Like, he's really bad. He can't do it. And like that, he's not exactly surrounded by great actors. I mean, the stars of that show are Sarah Paulson, David Schwimmer, Sarah Paulson, and Cuba Gooding Jr.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a high bar to hit. And he's just got these massive, stupid hands. And he's just constantly like handling legal documents like someone who's never touched a piece of paper before. It's distractingly weird and it's bad. He got an Emmy nomination for it.
Of course.
He was a producer on it. I don't think it works. I was frustrated at the time because I really wanted Travolta's second wind of dramatic acting to explode. It just didn't happen. He's a Scientologist. He's had a hard time. His son died and his wife died. The wonderful Kelly Preston, a great America's favorite pastime, my favorite. She died in 2020. His son died a number of years before that. So I feel for the guy. He's now very good friends with Pitbull. He shaved his head to look like Pitbull. He performed with Pitbull at the awards show. I performed the song "Get Ready," which samples Black Betty.
You know, not to like make light of the situation, but I think if my son and wife died,
you would hang out with Pitbull.
I think Pitbull is like the ideal person to hang out with,
because he'll never want to talk about any of that stuff.
No, he's just like good vibes.
Yeah,
he's
good
like,
vibes. Party Miami, Mr. Worldwide. Yeah, no sadness ever.
But like, yeah, Pitbull seems like a truly empathetic person.
Yes,
as well.
he does. He's got kindness in his heart.
He's got kindness.
He also has like 25 kids. Yeah. So Travolta has got his 2 Oscar nominations in his back pocket. I think the odds of him getting another one are
What's the second one?
Saturday Night Fever, 78.
Oh, Jesus. Really?
I think his odds of getting a third are extremely low.
Unless he physically does The Whale too.
He might have to do The Whale too. I think he's the exact type of person where there is a whale narrative lined up for him.
Yeah.
With the small clause that being a Scientologist kills a lot of that goodwill.
A little bit.
Now, there's obviously a lot of goodwill towards Tom Cruise and suspected Scientologist Will Smith out there, but I do think that like Brendan Fraser's thing of like, I was kind of cast out of the industry, I'm just this nice simple guy, that works a lot better on people than John Travolta being like, guys, this is my 4th comeback and I'm a Scientologist and I'm
just not a very good actor
and I'm a bad actor. Like Brendan Fraser's a way better actor. So like, I like John Travolta a great deal. He obviously is the star of one of the all-time boy party classics, Face Off, which you kind of decried we must never cover on the show.
Have we covered it?
No, you've declared we're not allowed. It's
fine.
It's him and Cage body swapping. It's a great duo movie, just in terms of like him and Cage together is like.
Have I made that statement?
True.
Okay,
it's a dream come true of weird guys, clashing with each other.
It's too much of a boy party.
It is too much of a boy party. It's too obvious.
It's too obvious. Yeah.
It does feel like one of the ones that's maybe too obvious. But anyway, it is a great.
Did we not do that in like Where's the Damn Sequel?
No, we've never done it. No, we've never done it. We watched it together once.
We did,
so that's why we feel like
we talked about it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, quickly want to just quickly touch on the other two stars in this. Yeah, quickly talented. The wickedly talented Uma Thurman, who
the wickedly talented Uma Thurman.
Yes, I'll say Uma Thurman gets She gets a couple years of juice out of this. She's in stuff like Gattaca, which people like. Then she's the marquee name on Tarantino's two Jackie Brown, it's fucking Kill Bill movies, which I haven't seen. Those are all just Uma everywhere, and I think that kind of hurts her because it overexposes her. I think people get sick of her after Kill Bill. Now, she's, I'm sure, very good in those films. As far as we know, Tarantino treated her pretty badly on the set of those movies and risked her safety with some stunts and stuff, which he's talked about now. But she's not my favorite actress. I don't get particularly riveted when she shows up and stuff. I think she's fine.
Like after we watched Pulp Fiction, we went through a series of watching Uma Thurman trailers.
Yeah, for 2000s movies, she was in. Very grim. There's stuff in there like My Super Ex-Girlfriend, The Accidental Husband. There was a movie she was in called Motherhood that I think was the lowest grossing film of the 2000s. I remember it made like $7 at the box office, like something famously low. She just is like very hard to... and this is a huge industry treating women badly problem.
Absolutely.
Once she turned 40, very hard to find roles for her because she's not a big, loud performer of a certain kind, and she's also not... She didn't quickly transition into being good for mother roles in teen movies. Or
is she the same age as the fellas in this? Or is she a bit younger?
I don't know. So she's 60s. So she is... I don't know. She has a child with Ethan Hawke. So I think she's 54 now.
Okay.
So she was 40 in 2010, which is when all those bad movies were being made.
Yeah.
So once she hit 40, they didn't know what to put her in. And they started putting her in Percy Jackson and this kind of shit.
She became like the mother in films.
She became she didn't even become the mother. She became the like Laura Linney, like government woman problem.
Yeah.
But again, not as good of an actress maybe as Laura Linney to be giving big scenes to, and good screenwriters don't want to work with her. She's been in a bunch of Lars von Trier movies, which is great for her. And Nymphomaniac, House That Jack Built, that's a good director to work with. But then she ends up in 2015 starring in The Slap, the infamous NBC miniseries in which she stars with people like Brian Cox and Zachary Quinto, a show that I enjoyed and watched every episode of. Academy Award nominee Uma Thurman really sticks out like a sore thumb in that show.
It's kind of Pulp Fiction in a sense.
The Slap is a show that if it had come out 4 years later and been on Hulu would have been perfectly respectable. Yeah. But in 2015, in February, on Thursday nights on NBC, was a joke.
Yeah.
Big Little Lies is kind of a similar show. Does a lot of the same stuff much better. Uma Thurman being in that is a little bit embarrassing, and you probably shouldn't be in that if you're one of the biggest stars of the 1990s. Now she's in an Apple show. She's kind of found her space to just kind of like do stuff that isn't embarrassing but isn't great either. She's got a big role in the new Paul Schrader movie with Richard Gere and Jacob Elordi, which I'm looking forward to. She was in this, she played Ariana Huffington in the Uber show with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Kyle Chandler. Like, now the prestige TV industry has found a place for Uma Thurman, which is you can play powerful women in a supporting role in a miniseries that'll get 3 Emmy nominations. This is the space that perhaps Travolta should also be operating in, but she fits in very well to it. I would say that her daughter now is easily a bigger star than her, which is a funny one.
Yeah.
Funny when that happens. Samuel L. Jackson, one of the highest grossing actors in the history of cinema, if not number one. No, he is number one. His films have grossed 27 billion worldwide. He breaks the game that we do on this show where I ask you to guess. He breaks it. The man is in, he's in the Marvels, he's in the Star Warses, he's in the Incredibles, he's in random crap like Kong Skull Island and Tarzan, and every 2 years he's in some big blockbuster, Kingsman, and he's actually in Die Hard 3 with Bruce Willis. He is probably a better actor than I give him credit for, just because I'm kind of just sick of him showing up and stuff. there is a strong narrative going that he might win his Oscar this year. And he is in this August Wilson adaptation that Denzel's son has directed of The Piano Teacher. Sam Jackson has been in Broadway productions of The Piano Teacher a number of times over the years in different roles. So this is like his thing.
Yeah. So this isn't him going out on a limb. Really,
no, this is him like doing a role that he's been doing his whole life now finally in a movie. I'd be very happy to see him win an Oscar, I think, in a Robert Downey Jr. kind of way, where I'm like, yeah, look, you're an undeniably charming, great guy who delivers. I just don't need to sit watching you in films as often, as maybe I would with anyone else, because you're just in fucking everything.
Like, I'd be afraid it'd be a case where he like turns around and flips his Oscar win into whatever Marvel 2.
Yeah, I don't know.
Pulls a Doctor Doom.
But I don't think there's anywhere left. I don't think there's any. There's nothing embarrassing Samuel L. Jackson could do now. He's crossed that line so long ago.
Yeah, a little bit.
He also, because he's not a cringe, like Robert Downey Jr. is very cringe Gen X guy who's just kind of embarrassing. Samuel L. Jackson is ultimately a very attractive, cool black man who his most famous thing is calling people motherfuckers.
Yeah.
I don't really think he can embarrass himself in any significant way other than just taking more checks for more mid B tier performances.
Unless he like quite literally turns into his character from Kingsman 2.
Sure. Yes.
Where he becomes like if he becomes like Elon Musk's
yes.
best friend, like
yes,
that would
be selling out politically would be the last bridge.
Was he on the crypto buzz? That was Spike Lee,
I don't think so. Yeah, I think Sam Jackson is generally a pretty sound individual on a political level.
Sure.
And he's friends with Spike Lee and he works with guys like that to this day, and M. Night and whatever. Not someone I have a lot of opinions about. When he eventually dies, I'm sure I will be one of many to be sharing the old Instagram stories, but I won't be sharing Star Wars. I won't be sharing Pulp Fiction. I'm different. I'll be sharing his role as the DJ in Do the Right Thing because I'm cool. So that's that. Those are our stars of Pulp Fiction. Jackson we'll discuss again. Realistically, the only one of these who's never getting brought up again on this podcast is poor Uma Thurman. Anyway, that's that.
Yeah. How
Pulpy Ficky.
Is it worth touching on the comparisons to Magnolia?
Yeah, I mean, and okay, so there's obviously these films that cram in a bunch of different stories with a bunch of different characters. There's Magnolia, there's Robert Altman's Shortcuts, Burn After Reading a little bit, yeah. Intermission. Crash. I think Magnolia gets so much more juice out of its sincerity and its compassionate interest in humanity than this or Shortcuts get out of their just outrageous levels of cynicism.
And I think it gets a lot more out of kind of, I guess when you're doing a film with these kind of interlinking stories, you're kind of making commentary on kind of just the absurdity of the universe and just how things interlink. And like, I think Magnolia presents that in a much more like, oh, anything can happen kind of way. Where like you don't know what's just out of your kind of field of vision. You don't know what's going on in the background and how it could affect you. I think that's a much more
spirituality.
There's a much more of a spirituality to Magnolia, even though this tries to do it with the whole briefcase thing.
But it doesn't get there.
It doesn't.
Tarantino's too much of a smartass for that.
I think he tries to make it too literal in that like, oh, there's a biblical presence here. And it's just, there's not really.
I think that the Coen brothers and Paul Thomas Anderson are the perfect middle ground for me. And these are my favorite filmmakers of this generation because they are intelligent and they are cynical, but they are not cynical in this kind of nihilistic, stupid way that I think Tarantino is. I think that they are cynical in a literate way rather than in a annoying video store guy way. Ultimately, Tarantino is somebody I would, and this does not even need to include his politics, his support of Israel, his going on Club Random with Bill Maher and talking shit about Kills the Flower Moon, all of which make him a massive dickhead. But he is just a very annoying type of film fanatic who I would hate to get trapped in a conversation with. And I think that shines through in every one of his movies.
Yeah, like there's for the shit Nolan gets in Interstellar, like the message at the end of it has like a bit of sometimes love and nice things are
Nolan
good.
is a little bit
he's too far in the wrong direction.
Yeah, but he's in the opposite direction. Yeah, nobody's got this exact problem really except Tarantino and like his friends.
Yeah, where ultimately when you come out of watching a Tarantino, you're just a bit void of any kind of like niceness or hope. Which fine, whatever, that's his thing.
We do the credits game?
Yeah.
Cast list game, rather. I'm going to do the cast list of one of the movie starring one of the people from Pulp Fiction, one of the actors. I'll read it from bottom to top.
I'll pull the numbers for the next game.
The biggest movies of 1994. Yeah. I'll read the cast list from bottom to top and see if Shane can guess what the movie is. I'm trying to find one that might be interesting. All right, here's an interesting one. Okay. The year, 2014. This stars somebody from Pulp Fiction.
Okay.
2014 is the year. I'm going to skip a few names. I'm going to start about halfway up the list. Backwards, folks. Mm-hmm. Daniel Cash, Philip Aiken, Zach Grenier. It's the guy from... Imagine there's a Grenier in Entourage. I don't know if that's him. Patrick Garrow, Douglas Urbanski, Amy Garcia, Samuel L. Jackson.
Okay, 2014.
Yeah, there's a lot of names left to go.
Right. I got that.
Marianne Jean-Baptiste, Jay Baruchel.
Interesting.
I'll keep going.
Yeah.
Jennifer Ellie, the actress I would cast as my mother in a film.
Okay.
Michael K. Williams.
It's funny because my parents would cast Jay Baruchel as me in a movie about their lives.
It's not a bad idea. Yeah. We'll have to dig into that one. Michael K. Williams. Jackie Earle Haley.
Okay.
Abby Cornish. Now, there's a movie star.
Yeah.
And then there's 3 names left. I'll keep going.
Yeah.
Michael Keaton. Subject of next week's episode, folks.
2014.
I don't think this movie was mentioned once on the Michael Keaton episode.
No, it's not the other guys.
This comes out 6 months before Birdman.
6 months before Birdman. Is it a comedy?
Nope. I'll give you the next name.
Michael Keaton and Sam Jackson are both in the other guys. Yeah. It's not that.
No. Keep going.
Yeah, go on.
Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman. Have I seen this?
No way have you seen this.
Is this like a period piece?
No one has ever seen. No one has ever seen. Well, it depends on the period. What do you mean by period?
I don't know. It's not like fucking World War II. Like
no.
Okay.
Well, I'll give you the top billed actor. The star of this movie is Joel Kinnaman.
Joel Kinnaman.
Yeah. So now this is really a test of, do you know what Joel Kinnaman's one opportunity to be a movie star that didn't work out was?
This sounds like real Lone Ranger bullshit.
It is exactly Lone Ranger bullshit.
Okay.
This is an iconic character design outfit costume situation.
It's like Legend of Zorro or something.
No, you're thinking past. You got to think
past.
Future.
This
is a Zorro level iconic character, but think future.
A guy in the future.
Yeah, it's a guy in the future. Maybe a guy or part guy. Part something.
It's like RoboCop.
RoboCop remake 2014, directed by
Joel Kinnaman.
Jose Padilla, starring Joel Kinnaman, Gary Oldman, Michael Keaton, Samuel L. Jackson. Yeah. A movie that I assume is not good. Now, 1994. And immediately after that, Michael Keaton shows up in Need for Speed, like the week after.
Yeah.
Depressing times. Anyway, tune in next week for Keaton Talk. Right. 1994.
Like, ridiculous list of films
here.
Okay,
so number 1, Forrest Gump.
No.
Okay. The Lost World, Jurassic Park?
That's
93. So number 1, we haven't discussed it yet, have we?
No.
Number 1.
We won't.
Give me a clue.
No.
Is it for children?
Yeah.
Is it animated?
Yeah.
The Toy Story?
No.
Animated, not Toy Story, 1994.
Mm-hmm.
What? But it's animated.
Maybe it came out at the end of 2023 or 1993 and just spilled in.
But I'm confused as to what animated movies there are in the 90s other than Toy Story. That's what's confusing me.
Unless this was a brief re-release.
This has to be... Oh, is it Beauty and the Beast?
No, it's The Lion King.
The Lion King. Forgot about The Lion King.
Was that 94?
Sure.
Yeah.
I forgot about The Lion King. Sorry, we haven't even mentioned. This summer was the 30th anniversary of Pulp Fiction. That's why we're doing this episode.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we could do it anyway.
Yeah, but this is the
reason.
There's a reason why it's on the
excuse.
brain. Yeah,
we need an excuse.
It's on the brain.
Number 2.
Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Next up. Action film? Starring someone you don't like?
Someone I don't
No,
like.
sorry. The lead is someone you have moderate affection for, who we've covered on the podcast.
Someone I have moderate affection for. We've covered on the podcast. Oh, God, I don't know. An action star. Who do I have moderate affection for?
Action star. Big action star. Emphasis on the big.
It's Stallone.
No.
Schwarzenegger.
Yes.
Yes, it's a Schwarzenegger. I don't know. Is it a good film or a bad film? Is it True Lies?
It's True Lies.
Yeah. James Cameron. Haven't seen. Stars my favorite, Jamie Lee Curtis. All right.
Next up.
Okay.
kind of something that's also for kids, but not.
Something that's also for kids, but not. I don't know.
Here's
Give me a clue or director or review or something.
Okay, we've got your review here.
Yeah.
This was a 3-star film.
Okay.
Sufficiently silly and great set design.
Addams Family Values?
Very close.
The Addams Family.
No, not. But
is it Tim Burton?
You're right in the family way.
I'm right in the family way.
Yeah. Actress name, good God, what are you doing here? Is the other part of your
I don't know.
This was the first film you watched in 2024.
Oh, The Flintstones.
The Flintstones.
Very good.
Next up.
Who was I saying? What are you doing here? Halle Berry.
Elizabeth Taylor?
Oh, yeah, Elizabeth Taylor's in that. All right, keep going.
Next up, big comedy boy.
Eddie Murphy.
No.
Mike Myers. Steve Martin.
No. Younger?
I don't know. Adam Sandler, Ben Stiller.
Closer.
Vince Vaughn. No. Jack Black. No. Too early.
You're missing the big one.
I'm missing a bit. Will Ferrell is too young. Slightly older than all of those guys. Yeah, this is obviously somebody very famous.
Robin
Williams. No.
So close.
Billy Crystal.
No. A bit younger.
I'm being stupid right now.
Stupid.
I can't think of any other comedy stars.
He's the guy.
I don't know.
He's the comedy guy.
Jim Carrey. Is this The Mask?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then Ace Ventura is probably in here too then. And Dumb and Dumber.
Potentially.
Because they all came out the same year. Or they all came out within 2 years anyway.
What was it? 94 Jim Carrey had all the films, and 2004 Ben Stiller had all the films.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Jim Carrey also had a good 2004.
He did, yeah. 2004 and 94 were big comedy films. We have got another action movie.
I don't know.
Starring a guy you don't particularly care for.
I don't know who I don't particularly care for.
Okay, Jeff Daniels is fifth in this.
Speed is good.
Got Alan Ruck in there.
Yeah, I don't care for Keanu, but Speed is a good film.
Mm-hmm. Jeff Daniels dies at the beginning.
Jeff Daniels dies in 15 minutes in.
15 minutes in.
Still, that's 15 minutes of like uninterrupted Jeff Daniels.
This is very funny. The seventh film.
Let's wrap it up with this.
Stars 2 actors from the previous 2 films.
Okay, so Keanu's in it?
No.
Jeff Daniels is in it?
Yeah.
Dumb and Dumber?
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, next we've got 4 Weddings and a Funeral, Interview with a Vampire, Pulp Fiction comes in at number 10.
Yeah, that's a fun year.
Disclosure, Clear and Present Danger.
There's like good stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of 3-star films in there. All right.
Who wins this for you?
For me, Bruce Willis.
I think so.
Just about, but nothing triumphant. No one in this that is an all-time great performance, in my opinion.
Ving Rhames doing the shtick. Love it.
Yeah, everyone's having fun. I'm not as into it as I wish I was.
Did you see Tim Roth 6 weeks ago?
I saw Tim Roth 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
He walked past me 5 minutes after Brian Cox wouldn't take a photo with me. Tim Roth walked past. Nobody has ever given bigger vibes of I would take a photo with you, and I did not approach it.
Your confidence was shot after Brian Cox.
I also just don't have as much relationship with Tim Roth as I do with Brian Cox. The photo wouldn't be as meaningful, but seemed like a nice man. Nobody fucking move. It's probably the best line delivery in this film.
Is that Honey Bunny? Or
Honey Bunny, yeah.
Yolanda, be cool.
Yes. Thank you for tuning in to our Pulp Fiction episode. That's the end of real cinema, because for the next 4 weeks we're only talking about one thing. Ha 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 ha! It's Joker month.
We putting a ban on Tarantino's from here on out, or have we any more?
I don't think we should do any more Tarantino's. I don't want to.
We didn't talk about them in this episode.
I don't want to do any more Tarantino's. There's no others that are really worth doing.
Did you do your ranking last time? Do you want to drop it? No.
My ranking now is number 1 Jackie Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is probably Inglourious Bastards, but I need to rewatch it. Number 3 is probably this. Number 4 is probably Django. And then everything else is kind of a muddle. But I haven't seen Kill Bill.
I agree.
Hateful Eight is dead last.
Sure.
Hateful Eight's fucking garbage. Anyway.
Righto.
Tune in next week. Joker month kicks off with Tim Burton's Batman. Tim Burton and Michael Keaton are going to top the box office next weekend for the first time in decades. So we are discussing them in their second collaboration, Batman. And then the week after, The Dark Knight. The week after that, we're doing Suicide Squad. And the week after that, hopefully, we're doing Joker, Folie à Deux. And then we're back to a real cinema for the family, like Pulp Fiction. Visit boypartypod.com. Follow Boy Party Pod on Instagram and Twitter. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, folks. Goodbye.